everyone. You're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. There is a showdown between the superpowers, the United States and China, over Taiwan. As the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, the number 3 in the power structure of the U.S., has touched down in Taiwan after multiple warnings from the Chinese government, namely the warning from Xi Jinping that came directly to Joe Biden, where he said, "Don't play with fire." In fact, Nancy Pelosi has tweeted, and I quote her, "The visit honors America's unwavering commitment to supporting Taiwan's vibrant democracy. America's solidarity with the 23 million people of Taiwan is more important today than ever as the world faces a choice between autocracy and democracy." She will meet the president of Taiwan tomorrow. China has reacted to the speaker's visit, saying it violates the One China principle and diplomatic agreements between China and the United States. In another warning, the Chinese government said it will protect its territorial sovereignty and the consequences must be borne by the United States and Taiwan. China has scrambled its military assets, including tanks, jets, and aircraft carriers, in provinces neighboring Taiwan, including the South and East China, and is set to conduct military exercises over the next 5 days. Meanwhile, 4 U.S. warships, including an aircraft carrier, have been positioned in waters east of Taiwan, while American jets were mobilized from Japan in response to China. Taiwan has always been America's asset to check China's power in East Asia. However, amidst China's expansionist push in Asia and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is a conflict over the island now on the cards. So what does Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taipei actually mean? Could war erupt over Taiwan now between US and China? China hasn't ruled out using force to achieve Taiwan's reunification. Remember, that has been the long demand that China has been having of reunification. Xi Jinping has emphasized that unification with Taiwan is essential for Chinese dream. That is one thing that he also communicated to US President Joe Biden. Taiwan has been a major catalyst for China's military modernization as well, and it's very important for Chinese scheme of things. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in May, in fact, emboldened China because despite all the sound and fury, nobody really stood with Ukraine. None of the countries really came for Ukraine's rescue besides just offering support verbally. United States hasn't ruled out defending Taiwan if China attacks. That is again an important development because that was essentially communicated by White House to China after a series of press releases that came before Pelosi landed in Taipei and also after. Taiwan does not have defense capabilities without external support. So what does this visit of Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan actually mean? Joining me on the show, Dr. Chung Lai. He is the president of the Prospect Foundation, which is a Taiwan-based foreign policy think tank. He is joining me from Taipei. Laura Hart is the director at the European-based human rights NGO Safeguard Defenders, joining me from Rome. Andrew Leung is international and independent China strategist based in Hong Kong. We also have Ashok Sajanhar, former diplomat, joining me from Norway. Thank you so much for joining us on the special show of News Epicenter. Laura Hart, going to begin with you. Joe Biden and Xi Jinping want to clearly avoid an open conflict, but neither has made an attempt to alter their competing narratives, which was illustrated again by their contrasting statements about Thursday's call. Given the kind of statements that are coming from both the sides, whoever plays with fire will get burned, and the other side warning of serious consequences, where is this entire visit heading?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and very much looking forward to hearing also from the other speakers on this show, especially from Taipei, obviously. Well, I think when we talk about playing with fire, we have to be very clear that there's only one side really playing with fire, and that's obviously the Chinese Communist Party in this moment. On the one hand, we have the Speaker of the US House of Congress making a visit to a democratic, friendly government, representing those democratic values that standing for human rights, for the rule of law, that obviously unites the people from Taiwan, the people from the US, but I'd say with the people of Europe and other nations as well, obviously. And then, in response, we have obviously a very insecure government acting out almost, I'd say, a bit as a child with, escalating these kind of military exercises, now announcing military operations overnight. For sure, we are talking about, as far as we can see, limited military operations. And I do hope that those lines of communication, which seems to have been restored or reinforced during the call between President Biden and Secretary General Xi last week, will obviously help to prevent any escalation. But I think we need to be very clear on who is escalating here, who is acting out, who is playing with fire here. And just a small note on your introduction, which I think is so important to highlight. When the Chinese side speaks of reunification, this dream of reunification with Taiwan, it's always very important that they've never controlled Taiwan. Taiwan has never been under control of the Chinese Communist Party. So I don't think we should be feeding into their propaganda narratives by echoing or using these same words. I think we all should remain quite calm, applaud the visit by Speaker of the House Pelosi. We know this was not an easy decision. We know there's a lot of pros and cons. I also empathize, obviously, with the people of Taiwan in this moment who will actually bear the brunt
Laura,
of
I want
Beijing's
to understand from
anger
you also this, before I bring in other panelists, that does it have more to do with Nancy Pelosi, given a long history of opposing Beijing?
I think she doesn't have a history of opposing Beijing. She has a history of standing up for human rights, for defending those rights defenders, the people of China that have been oppressed for over 70 years by the Chinese Communist Party. She is standing up for the rule of law, as a lot of people in many countries are, including inside China. The only fact is that those people trying to do it within mainland China or now Hong Kong, and maybe tomorrow, if Beijing had its way in Taiwan, they can't do this. So this is the reason why people around the world are rallying around Nancy Pelosi, because of the message she is sending. And let's remind everybody, this is not the first member of Congress. Obviously, she's the Speaker of the House, but member of Congress making a visit. There's so many members of Parliament from across the world that have been making visits to Taiwan to express exactly this message in support with the people of Taiwan, who, again, I want to remind, will bear the brunt of Beijing's anger in this, as we have seen already through the measures that have been taken since last night with unilateral economic sanctions and so on. So I think we're all very much looking forward to understand what will happen in the next days, but moreover, I'd say what will happen in the next weeks, and will Beijing, bring down its tone from where it's escalating at the present moment.
Okay, what are you sensing, Andrew Leung, given the tone and tonality of the statements that are coming in from China's foreign ministry about this visit of Nancy Pelosi? With every press release, it seems to be with sharper words. They are saying that it gravely undermines peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait and sends a seriously wrong signal to the separatist forces for Taiwan independence. Then they also talk about the equation and the relationship between the US and China Do you think uh, China looking at escalating this, or are you of the opinion that this is mere rhetoric or some kind of warning which will not hold?
Well, let's face it, both China and the United States neither wants a war.
Yes.
Because they're coming up in November are key events for both sides. For the Chinese, there is the National People's Congress, which is going to confirm President Xi's third term and to unveil the new leadership, lineup, the members of the permanent members of the Politburo, the 7 top leaders, including a replacement for the current Premier Li Jiaqiang. As far as the United States is concerned, of course, it's the midterm elections coming up, where President Biden and Nancy Pelosi may lose control over the House and the Senate. So I think that both countries don't want a war. But on the other hand, both countries cannot be seen to
then in that case, is this more like a Taiwan card that US is playing? Because even as we speak, and as I said, that there's constant warning that is coming from China. There's a piece of breaking news that has just come in. China's envoy to the United States has now reacted to Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taipei, and he has said that China's response will be powerful and strong. What does it actually mean, Mr. Leung? I mean, how are you looking at another statement that is coming from China?
Well, I was going to say that this is not a single issue. It is the accumulation of how the United States has been honoring its promise to uphold the One China principle. Because the One China principle was brokered by after President Nixon's visit to Chairman Mao, teaching Taiwan and upholding China, Beijing, as the only legitimate government for China and with a seat in the United Nations. But however, throughout the years, the United States has been seen to be pushing the envelope, trying to create an extremely wide diplomatic space, promoting Taiwan's role in international organizations, including those in the United Nations, and fielding more and more senior officials to visit Taiwan, and perhaps even cajoling Americans' allies to do the same. So in the eyes of Beijing, this is hollowing out the whole China, One China principle. Okay. And that's why Beijing is extremely agitated by this. Okay. But on the other hand, as I said, both countries don't want a war. And what we're seeing are military exercises.
We said the same about Russia, that it did not really want a war, and then we saw what really happened. Let me go straight to ground zero, Taipei, and get Dr. Chung Lai now. Dr. Chung Lai, what is the risk with this diplomatic visit of Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan?
Well, personally, a lot of people, they was questioning whether the Taiwan Strait crisis will come up precisely due to Chinese reaction against the Nancy Pelosi visit to Taiwan. But as far as we can see right now, the military movement by China against Taiwan, we do not see that many of the actions there. On the other hand, we do see some the Chinese cyber action against Taiwan.
If US, one view certainly is, if United States is indeed serious about Taiwan's future, then why doesn't it recognize the island as an independent country first and give up that entire One China principle or policy?
Well, this is the thing that we are also asking ourselves, and also with the United States. But I think we understand that the United States, in order to maintain the stability across the Taiwan Strait, and especially not to incur too much Chinese reactions, and they intended to maintain the so-called One China policy and try to maintain the unofficial relationship with Taiwan. But on the other hand, the United States does not recognize that Taiwan is a part of PRC. So this is the kind of the balances they are maintaining. It's ambiguous, but probably from Washington, that is the best formula they can have in terms of the maintaining the stability across the Taiwan Strait.
Dr. Chunglai, how are these words from China being viewed? Are these saber rattling, or is the threat real?
Well, because Taiwan has been under Chinese threat for over 70 years, and there are some times that China even launched missiles against us. The most recent example is the 1996, when Taiwan has its first presidential election. China launched missiles to intimidate Taiwanese people from voting for the people that China disliked, but China failed. But anyway, that the Chinese threat to Taiwan is a constant feature that we need to live with, and we have already developed a way to cope with this problem. So the issue is that it's not that how are we able to avoid the Chinese pressure, but how to manage this pressure. And as for this visit from the Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan, although the Chinese has a very belligerent verbal attack against both United States and Taiwan, but the military actions, at least for now, we do not see that kind of the big mobilization like Russia's invasion against Ukraine that's happening across the Taiwan Strait.
Okay, I want to understand from you, why do you say that it could not be like Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and how has this constant threat, because that's your word, that you say escalated because of this visit?
I think the issue is really in terms of how China would like to portray it. Because the Nancy Pelosi's visit as a House Speaker, this is not the first time.
Yes.
In 1997, Newt Gingrich as a House Speaker also visited Taiwan. And look at what's happening after that. The U.S. policy toward Taiwan did not change. The one China policy wasn't abolished. And the unofficial relation with Taiwan still maintained. So that if China decided that China can actually shrink it off, as this is just the repeat of what was happening 25 years ago, or China decided to rush up the pressure and trying to play the chicken game. But apparently right now that China seems to verbally play up the pressure, but we do not see that manifest itself in the military realm. But of course, Taiwan is very vigilant, trying to guard against all the possible action by China, especially after Nancy Pelosi departed Taiwan, and especially after the China finished its 20th National CCP Congress, in which that the Xi Jinping probably would not be restrained in terms of all the foreign actions. And that's the issue that we are watching very closely, and trying to guard against and defend any Chinese possible aggression against Taiwan.
Dr. Chunglai, you were right that this isn't the first visit. In fact, in recent times, there have been series of diplomatic visits to Taiwan. Would you say that statements from China have only complicated issues? It could have just remained any other diplomatic visit, but it became the one it is, with several sides being on military alert only because of series of statements that came from China?
The issue is actually that because the China can actually play down, but China decided to play up. So what is happening within Chinese leadership, and also the current internal state of China, that is the thing that we need to really figure out. Does that mean that Xi Jinping's grip on power within China is actually not as stable as people expected it to be? And so that Xi Jinping is forced to the corner, need to do something against it? Or is Xi Jinping, his third terms, is actually meeting more turbulence rather than that he anticipated? So that he need to do something. So those are the new development. Possibly we need to reassess whether this saber rattling in terms of the verbal attack by China represents that kind of the underneath changes within Chinese society, and that is something that we need to look at very closely.
Okay, let me bring in Ambassador Sarjanahar, because all the developments in the neighborhood is being watched by India very closely at the same time. Ambassador Sarjanahar, really appreciate your time. I know you're joining me from Norway and you're on a holiday there, but because this is the top international story, we need your perspective. As far as India is concerned, given the kind of relationship that we have with our neighbor, China, how important is it to be on the right side as far as this visit of Nancy Pelosi is concerned?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much, Maria, for having me on your show. Well, I am in Norway, but I'm not on holiday. I am, on work. So I'm delighted to be joining you, have the opportunity of joining you and contributing to this discussion. The first thing I think we really need to keep in mind is that the United States has said in no uncertain terms over and over again that there is no change in the US policy as far as China is concerned, as far as Taiwan is concerned. And that this should be treated as any other congressional visit that has taken place. Nancy Pelosi has also said that there have been so many congressional visits that have taken place, and this should be treated in the same way. The only country which seems to be escalating tensions as a result of this visit, and what the White House and the National Security Council in the United States, they have tried to tamp down the tensions. Now, as far as our neighborhood is concerned, Maria, when I was reading all these statements coming out of Beijing, from Wang Yi, from the official spokesperson, it really took back my mind to the abusive language that we heard during the Doklam conflict.
Yes.
I don't know, I'm sure you remember
Yes.
what are the sort of invectives that were hurled at India. India maintained its calm, India maintained its cool, and we said that, if there has to be a withdrawal, it has to be done simultaneously together. We refused to take the bait. We refused to sort of, trade charges in the same
So then in
way,
that case,
in the same language.
Ambassador Sajana, has US taken the bait?
China was doing.
Because as far as
Yeah, but
China
the
is
United
concerned, to
States
be
has also-
specific, the Chinese government's disdain towards Nancy Pelosi is no secret. They have used and labeled her as full of lies and disinformation as well. So the kind of language that you keep talking about has only that language which is problematic, which is clearly not diplomatic here, has only escalated. So has US taken the bait in the manner in which they have reacted as well?
Well, the United States, Maria has said that we are not taking the bait and we are not responding in a similar measure, similar tone as China is doing. And China should do everything to de-escalate and not to raise the tension. So I think the United States is playing according to its own plan, that this is another congressional visit. Many other visits have taken place of this nature. So it should be allowed to go on as it is. But of course, now we see that, when China has raised the pitch so much, it has done so much of muscle flexing, I think it will find it difficult after the Pelosi visit is over, not to show anything, maybe not to the neighborhood, not to the international community, but also to its own domestic constituency, that, the threats that it was making, they are not empty threats, that there was some substance to it. There would have to be some sort of a face saving, like the face saving that we did as far as Doklam was concerned.
That's
so
right.
There might be some economic actions that might be taken. We have seen some of those economic actions happening as of last night. But I think the real impact would be seen after Ms. Nancy Pelosi leaves Taiwan. Last word on this, what I would like to comment is that, for all the time, there are China issues threats, China issues all these bullying statements, and countries that are, against which it makes these comments, they succumb. They just sort of, do whatever China wishes them to do. India did not do that, whether it was in Doklam or it was in Ladakh. India stood up to China and it called the Chinese bluff. And I think definitely you cannot expect that all these sorts of threats will be able to cow down the United States. I think otherwise it will be seen as a repeat of the appeasement policy of 1930s when Chamberlain had just succumbed to what Hitler was threatening. So I think there are points at which countries have to say enough is enough, and they have to sort of, stand up for their principles and their positions.
Yes.
Maria.
And Laura, why is Taiwan so important for rest of the world as well? Because it is important in terms of democratic messaging as well.
Well, Taiwan is very important not only because of democratic messaging. It's a very economic,
Yes.
a big economic epicenter of this world. Obviously, very important also for the chips it manages to produce. It has the biggest center in the world, so we are all dependent also from what Taiwan offers to the rest of the world. But in terms of from an activist point of view, from a human rights point of view, from a rule of law point of view, it is clear that Taiwan represents a bit the bulwark, a symbol
Yes.
of, you know, what could be a free China. And I think that is something that obviously the Chinese Communist Party is so afraid of. It shows that this narrative, this propaganda they're trying to feed to the world of, you know, an alternative kind of democracy, the model, the Chinese model, socialist model with Chinese characteristics, that they are trying to present to the world, to other countries, as an alternative to what are the international rules, to what is the international understanding and agreement on what human rights and democracy are. Taiwan shows that there is an alternative to that CCP narrative. So I think that's something that in ideological terms, they're very afraid of. And, you know, after what happened, and again, it's only 2 years ago that we saw, let's say, the full takeover of Hong Kong by the CCP, again, against the international agreements that they had signed. Obviously, when they passed the national security law, or better said, they imposed the national security law on Hong Kong. I think it is the fear of many activists, politicians, researchers, observers around the world that something similar might happen to Taiwan, especially as we see these kind of CCP tactics of trying to, you know, stifle people into silence by threatening them, harassing them, as we see this spreading around the world in growing efforts of transnational repression. So Taiwan really signifies a lot, not only in very direct economic terms as a very important center,
right,
but also as a symbol of what may happen to the rest of the world, to other nations, to people around the world, if we let the CCP win this one as well. And I want to pay attention to my words. When I say win, I'm not talking obviously of a direct war with China, which is something we all hope to avoid. But I think at this point, it's very clear that that will depend only on the Chinese Communist Party. So I think we need to do all we can to keep talking to them, to de-escalate. At the same time, we cannot compromise on those fundamental values. We cannot compromise on the promise and on the lives.
Let me bring in Dr. Chung Lai again. And Dr. Chung Lai, are the Taiwanese people worried?
I think the general public in Taiwan, they still live their own lives, and we have a professional baseball team competition that's still going on, and U12 international Little League baseball competition in Taiwan, that was still going on, and a lot of people still have their good time and the dance and then watching the movies. So I do not think that the people here, ordinary lives, have been much affected by the Chinese verbal threat against Taiwan should the Nancy Pelosi visit Taiwan. And we are basically looking at the actions rather than the verbal threat from China. And currently, it seems that the Chinese actions in terms of the military hasn't really reached out to the scale that they want people to believe in.
How critical is Taiwan's strait for the future of U.S. in the Pacific?
Well, I would say that the apparently since Xi Jinping took up power, and his actions apparently reached up several degrees of the tension against Taiwan, so that the military invasion against Taiwan right now is considered to be a real possibility and a real threat. And the Taiwan government right now is take this as the most urgent priority in terms of the policy execution for the defending Taiwan, so that our defense and our preparation for the defending against possible attack by China, those are the things that have been put on agenda and working very seamlessly. And at the same time that we also ratchet up our diplomatic alliances as well as our international coalition to help Taiwan to offend against Chinese possible aggression against us. and hopefully that we're able to dissuade China from taking such action. But we are not relying on the Chinese goodwill. We believe that the strong defense that is most important, and we are trying everything to boost our strength for defending ourselves.
Can you really rely on the U.S., given the kind of experience that Ukraine had in that war and invasion by Russia?
Well, I think that although that some people look at what's happening in Ukraine and the Russians' possible nuclear threat successfully repel the NATO's more intense military involvement in the Ukraine defense as the evidence that possibly Taiwan cannot rely on the United States should China attack Taiwan. And but right now what we see is actually the intensification of the U.S.-Taiwan security cooperation in terms of the military training and the military delegation from the United States to Taiwan and the assessment regarding Taiwan's defense. That has been going on. And recently, the strongest debate between U.S. and Taiwan is actually about the defense strategy and what's the best way to defend Taiwan. So that the intensification of discussion between the United States and Taiwan in this area also means that the U.S. is very serious about how to defend, help Taiwan to defend itself. So that I personally do not think that we have this kind of worry that Taiwan will be abandoned by the United States should China attack Taiwan.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Chung Lai, Laura Harth, Andrew Leung, and Ashok Sajanhar. Shifting focus now to debate 2, which is the web of words the Congress party seems to find itself in. Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma has slammed Jharkhand Congress MLA Kumar Jaimangal Singh for dragging his name in the ongoing controversy following the arrest of 3 Jharkhand Congress MLAs by the Bengal police while carrying cash of around 50 lakh rupees. The rebuttal came in the wake of the claim from Jaimangal Singh that 3 MLAs of the party, of the Congress party, approached him with a 10 crore payout to topple the Hemant Soren-led Jharkhand government, which is of JMM, Congress, RJD. In his FIR, the MLA has said that the 3 MLAs, Irfan Ansari, Rajesh Kachchap and Naman Kongari, called him to come to Kolkata. Kumar Jaimangal Singh claims they wanted to take him to Guwahati to arrange a meeting with Himanta Biswa Sarma, who would give him an assurance of a definite ministerial berth apart from the multi-crore payout is helped to engineer the collapse of this Jharkhand government of Hemant Soren. The Congress MLA says he refused the proposal while his party has alleged a BJP plot, even suspending the 3 MLAs over the cash haul. But there is another twist in the conspiracy. Assam Minister Piyush Hazarika released photographs of a recent meeting of Jaimangal Singh with Himanta Biswa Sarma in Delhi in the presence of Union Coal Minister Prahlad Joshi. In his tweet, Hazarika said that 5 days before filing the FIR, Kumar Jaimangal Singh met the 2 leaders seeking help in a trade union related matter. Hazarika has also said that Kumar Jaimangal Singh has been regularly meeting Himanta Biswa Sarma and should face the law for making false allegations against the Chief Minister. This has put the Congress on the back foot again. So what is the truth behind this scandal? Is the Congress struggling to defend and distance itself from the cash stash recovered from its own MLAs, or is there enough evidence of Operation Lotus in Jharkhand? Let me bring in my guests now. Tuhin Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP, Saryu Roy, independent MLA from Jharkhand. Dr. Maua Maji is Member of Parliament of the JMM, and Swati Malik, spokesperson of the Congress. Swati Malik, I'm going to begin with you. On one hand, Jaimangal Singh meets Himanta Biswa Sarma in Delhi. Then he says that these MLAs who are presently in custody offered him cash to visit Guwahati to meet Sarma. If he is in fact meeting him, why should money be offered to meet him in Guwahati? Isn't your whistleblower in fact making contradictory statements?
Mara, it's too early to say that they are contradictory statements. I think this is when the ED should come in. If there is a serious allegation of money being offered, and this is not the first time that this is happening. We all know what happened to Maharashtra. We all know how the MLAs were taken to Goa and from there to Guwahati. So it's not really unheard of. And with Mr. Biswa's record and his history, it's not very surprising that he has been offering money. And yes, this is when.
But will you not be questioning your own MLA as well, Swati?
No, I'm questioning those 3 MLAs who have already been suspended and expelled from the party, for that matter. The ones who were caught with this money, and they were also trying to influence others. They've already been expelled by the party. We have already taken action against them.
What
As far
about
as the
Jai
4th
Mangal
MLA
Singh, who is
was
holding meetings with Himanta Biswa Sarma and then alleging that he has been offered 10 crore by these MLAs who have been caught with cash to arrange for a meeting in Guwahati? If he is having a meeting, then why does he need these 3 MLAs to arrange for another meeting in Guwahati?
Why not investigate the matter? Why not the complaint be taken action upon, and let's find out what really happened? Let's not assume here whether this MLA, whether he's just because he did not take up the offer, or we're just assuming that because he met and then why would he go to Guwahati to meet more? I mean, for more money, right? That's what we're assuming. So there's a complaint in place. Let the central agencies, for that matter, and why not ED, who's the most active these days, right? The PMLA, bring in the PMLA, and let's find out what really happened. But somebody has to take action against Mr. Biswa. Somebody has to at least start investigating the man. That's what I mean to say here.
Tuhin, Operation Lotus gone wrong?
Not at all. Not at all. You know, Maria, we don't need an Operation Lotus because the entire opposition is suffering from an existential crisis. They are, you know, desperate to come out of their party. So we don't need to carry out. Please understand that this, you know, cash which was discovered from the 3 Congress MLAs cannot be seen in isolation. Fact is, today most of the opposition parties, whatever remains of India, of the opposition in India, are downright corruption, and you know, they thrive on money laundering and black money. Now, Irfan Ansari has been a very senior Congress person. The question over here is that, was the CM of Jharkhand privy to his activities? Because, you know, in a strange, uncanny way, this entire thing reminds me of the JMM bribery case way back in 1993, where both Congress and JMM were involved. So I think there are larger questions over here, and also the possibility was of whether Partha Chatterjee's loot was being siphoned off or being hidden away to, you know, so that, you know, more of it is not discovered in Bengal.
But who bribed whom? Tuhin, who has bribed whom?
Nobody.
If it is a JMM Congress government, then who is bribing whom?
No, I'm saying that both Congress and JMM have been the hub of black money. Over here, it is for the 3 Congress MLAs to answer what they were doing with the unaccounted cash which was discovered from them. But fact is that they have been the hub of black money. They need to answer. It is the Jharkhand CM who needs to answer whether he was privy to the activities. Was the money being brought to Jharkhand for some campaign activity?
Dr. Mahua Maji, the alliance has been certainly rocky. We know about it. The fact that Hemant Soren went ahead and made the announcement of the Rajya Sabha nominee without even taking the Congress on board. So we know the equation, which is pretty rocky and is evidently so. What is exactly going wrong? You know that you do not have the numbers. You need the Congress, and you need independent parties. And if the Congress's house is not in order, is the government on weak wicket?
देखिए, इसमें ऐसा है कि राज्यसभा की बात बिल्कुल अलग है। कांग्रेस और राजद के साथ जब गठबंधन हुआ था जेएमएम का, तो लोकसभा और एमएलए इलेक्शन के लिए ही बात हुई थी उनके बीच, क्योंकि कांग्रेस नेशनल पार्टी है, इसलिए ये माना गया था कि मैक्सिमम लोकसभा की सीट्स हम लोगों ने कांग्रेस को दिया, और लोकल इलेक्शन में जो फर्स्ट और सेकंड थे हर कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी में, उनको सीट्स दिए गए। और राज्यसभा के बारे में कभी कोई बात नहीं हुई थी, इसलिए जेएमएम ने अपना कैंडिडेट दिया। इसके लिए आप ये नहीं कह सकते हैं कि पार्टीज में आपस में गठबंधन।
डॉक्टर माजी, मुझे अब ये कैश के बारे में बताइए, क्योंकि
मैं ये भी बोलना चाहूंगी,
मुख्यमंत्री ने हाउस में कल बोला कि ये ऑपरेशन लोटस था और उन्होंने बचा लिया अपनी सरकार। तो उनके पास अगर इस तरह की इंफॉर्मेशन थी तो उनको तो सबसे पहले कांग्रेस को बताना चाहिए था कि कांग्रेस के एमएलए क्यों इस तरह का ब्राइब दिया जा रहा है। सोनिया गांधी को क्या उन्होंने खबर की थी?
देखिए ऐसा है कि ये जो षड्यंत्र है, ये कॉन्स्पिरेसी कई महीनों से, कई सालों से चल रहा था। जब से हमारी सरकार बनी है तब से कई बार हुई है ऐसी घटनाएं, और इसके पहले भी जयमंगल सिंह ने एक बार एफआईआर दर्ज किया था इसी तरह की एक कॉन्स्पिरेसी को लेकर। उनको पहले भी ऑफर किया गया था और वो बात मीडिया में है, और उस समय 2 लोग अरेस्ट भी हुए थे, लेकिन जो एमएलएज थे वो पकड़ में नहीं आ पाए थे, वो निकल चुके थे वहां से। लेकिन इस बार वो प्रमाण के साथ चीज़ें सामने आई हैं और अगर उनको लेकर कोई मतभेद है, अगर वहाँ गुवाहाटी जाने को लेकर, तो अभी मोबाइल सबके साथ रहता है, मोबाइल लोकेशन से सारी चीजें सामने स्पष्ट हो जाएगी कि कौन कहाँ किससे बात की।
लेकिन सवाल ये उठता है जयमंगल सिंह, अगर 5 दिन पहले असम के मुख्यमंत्री से दिल्ली में मिलते हैं तो कौन मीटिंग अरेंज कर रहा था? ये कौन मिडलमैन था जो उनको लेकर के गुवाहाटी जा रहा था, जबकि ऑलरेडी वो मिल चुके थे? तो ये मुलाकात जो थी वो किस पर्पस के लिए थी? और वो वाली जो उनको बताया जा रहा था कि आपको इतना पैसा मिलेगा अगर आप सरकार गिराएंगे, तो कौन इसमें सच बोल रहा है?
देखिए, जो फोटोग्राफ सामने आए हैं उनसे मीटिंग की, उसमें कोई डेट्स नहीं सामने आया है कि किस दिन की तस्वीरें हैं
जी। 26 तारीख का है
वो इप्टा के। हाँ, लेकिन उसमें डेट
जयमंगल सिंह ने खुद बोला है कि मैंने मुलाकात की थी और मैंने चीफ मिनिस्टर को भी बताया था, अविनाश पांडे को भी बताया था, सारे लोगों को खबर करके वो गए थे। तो ये कंफर्मेशन है कि उन्होंने एक्सेप्ट किया खुद कि वो गए थे 5 दिन पहले मिलने के लिए। जब उनके पास डायरेक्ट एक्सेस है चीफ मिनिस्टर के लिए, असम चीफ मिनिस्टर को, तो उनको वाया मीडियम जाने की क्या जरूरत है जो ये एमएलएस क्लियर कर रहे हैं?
देखिए, कई बार ऐसा है ना कि बिना एविडेंस के कोई इस बात को स्वीकार नहीं करता है कि हमने इस तरह की कोई साजिश रची है। इसके पहले भी कई बार एलिगेशन लगे और जिन लोगों पर लगे उन्होंने साफ मना कर दिया। उन्होंने कहा कि ये षड्यंत्र है, हमने ऐसा कुछ नहीं किया। हो सकता है इसी के लिए एविडेंस के साथ अब पकड़े गए हैं तो वो खुलकर सामने आ पा रहे हैं।
Alright.
और इसके पहले वो नहीं आ पा रहे थे।
unanswered questions here, and we really do not know which is the investigating agency, because at present they are in custody of Kolkata police. So will the ED be getting into this because of the nature of the money haul? What is the nature of charge? All these are unanswered questions that remain up in the air, frankly. सरयू राय जी, मुझे ये बताइए, अभी झारखंड सरकार की आप ये देख रहे हैं, पूरा बहुत सारे वर्जन्स आ रहे हैं, कांग्रेस के एमएलएस कुछ बोल रहे हैं, जो उनका विसल ब्लोअर है वो कुछ और वर्जन बता रहा है। सच्चाई क्या है?
सच्चाई ये है कि कांग्रेस के लोग सरकार से संतुष्ट हैं और कांग्रेस में खुद ही भगदड़ मचने वाली है। मुझे 2 संभावनाएं लग रही हैं। एक संभावना है कि कांग्रेस के 12-13 विधायक टूटकर खुद जेएमएम ज्वाइन कर लें और हेमंत सोरेन जी मेजोरिटी की सरकार चलाएं। दूसरा हो सकता है कि 12-13 भाजपा के साथ चले जाएं और सरकार पलट दें। ये दोनों चीजें होंगी। कई ऐसे नाम आ रहे हैं इसमें, इस खेल में। एक आदित्य सिंह का नाम आ रहा है। आदित्य सिंह को पुलिस ने, स्पेशल ब्रांच ने रांची में गिरफ्तार किया था।
राइट।
आदित्य सिंह कौन है और कैसे छूटे, ये बात सरकार में शामिल लोग ही बता सकते हैं। और भी कई नाम आ रहे हैं इसमें। और आदित्य सिंह छूटे तो आदित्य सिंह ऑपरेशन लोटस के लिए आए थे या खुद कांग्रेस के लोग उनके यहाँ इसके लिए गए थे? ये बातें सामने आनी चाहिए। भारतीय जनता पार्टी की पहले 5 साल जो सरकार थी, उस सरकार के भी 2 चेहरे हैं जो इस मुहिम में शामिल हैं। और आप पता कराइए कि एसोसिएशन ऑफ बिलियन माइंड्स कौन है, कौन संस्था है, कौन कौन किरदार हैं इसमें से, और इससे जुड़े हुए जो लोग हैं उन लोगों ने कितनी यात्रा की है रांची की, ये पता हो जाए। और मुझे लगता है कि ईडी को कूद कर इसमें जाना चाहिए। ईडी नहीं जा रही है, इसलिए संदेह हो रहा है कि ईडी किस कारण से नहीं जा रही है। ईडी चली जाएगी तो सारे आयाम इसके सामने आ जाएंगे। और मैंने जो 2-3 नाम बताए हैं और जिस एसोसिएशन का नाम बताया है, उस एसोसिएशन के बारे में पूछ लें।
मुझे ये बताइए कि आप ये क्यों बोल रहे हैं कि कांग्रेस के एमएलए इतने संतुष्ट नहीं हैं मुख्यमंत्री से और इसीलिए वो शायद छोड़ रहे हैं?
देखिए, हेमंत सोरेन जी ने थोड़ी देर कर दी। इनके कांग्रेस के 1-2 मंत्री हैं, ये तो इनके कुर्सी के नीचे पलीता लगा रहे हैं और 6 महीने से बयान दे रहे हैं कैसा करेंगे वैसा करेंगे। इन्होंने छोड़ दिया, जिसके कारण से इनको ऐसी स्थिति का सामना करना पड़ रहा है। और कांग्रेस के लोग, देखिए, कांग्रेस एक लूटी पिटी पार्टी की तरह से हो गई है। अब माननीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी को ये वोट देने गए कांग्रेस के कई लोग, तो अपने नेताओं को तो नहीं बताया। यहाँ तो आए थे इनके पांडे जी, किसी ने नहीं कहा कि हमने साहब द्रौपदी मुर्मू को वोट दिया है। और वोट गए, 9-10 वोट उनके गए। तो कांग्रेस के भीतर आज जो मानसिकता है, कांग्रेस के लोग मान रहे हैं कि सरकार रहने के बाद भी हम लोगों को जितनी तवज्जो मिलनी चाहिए वो नहीं मिल रही है। इनके जो मंत्री
आपने
हैं,
आरोप
इनके
कांग्रेस
एमएलए
और भाजपा दोनों पे लगाया है। दोनों के स्पोक्स पर्सन हमारे साथ हैं, मैं दोनों से पूछूंगी। सबसे पहले टू यू स्वाति मलिक, you heard that the Congress's house is not in order and hence the version of Jai Mangal Singh will be questioned by those MLAs, and those MLAs, when he has filed an FIR, why should that be believed? But overall the question is about this cash. ये कैश कहां से आया, ये कैश किस पर्पस के लिए दिया गया था? All that is a subject of investigation.
Maria, absolutely. I think it is the cash that we should be focusing on right now, because where did this 48 lakhs, where did this amount come? It's not a very small amount. It's not something, and the reason given by these MLAs that they were going to Kolkata to buy some saris is what they said. Now that is absolutely unbelievable, and that is why a central agency needs
3
to
MLAs going to Kolkata to buy saris. I mean, that's ridiculous answer that they have given.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And that is why we need a serious investigation. And that's what even we are asking for. As soon as we got to know about this, we've expelled them. And now it is for the ED or any other central agency to take over the matter, and more so for ED under PMLA. All this will come under PMLA. They need to investigate.
Okay, Tuhin Sinha, why hasn't the ED taken up this case?
But they've only not jumped in till now. It's only been 3 days. And
I'm assuming.
Yes, because Saryu Rai is making a point that as to why has ED not jumped into it when ED is a very active agency these days.
I'm assuming it is a matter of time. I'm assuming it is a matter of time after the initial probe by the Kolkata police. In all likelihood, the ED will be stepping in. But like I said, number one, the Congress and the opposition in this country, especially the Congress, is collapsing on its own. So, please keep us out of it. We are not involved at all. And number two, a person like Irfan Ansari has been a very controversial person. Whether you go back to his comments when Taliban took over Afghanistan, or whether it is the Friday imposition of Sharia. So what that money was used for is something which is in fact a very serious matter. And, that obviously should be probed by the ED. I think, to my understanding, it's a matter of time before, the investigation
Dr. Mahua, since it's your government in the state, and all is, the matter of concern, the big concern is the government stable? Because everything is about Operation Lotus or Congress party's corruption. There are two versions that are coming in here. Will the Chief Minister be demanding an investigation now, particularly about the cash haul?
हाँ बिल्कुल, ये इन्वेस्टिगेशन सब लोग चाहते हैं और उससे ईडी को निश्चित रूप से इसमें आना चाहिए, क्योंकि ईडी हाल के दिनों में काफ़ी सक्रिय है। तो इतने बड़े मामले में ईडी क्यों नहीं आ रही है? ईडी को आना चाहिए, जांच करना चाहिए, और ईडी की जांच से सारी सच्चाई सामने आ जाएगी। ये तो होना ही चाहिए। सब लोग
सरयू राय जी, आप भी क्या डिमांड करेंगे? ईडी आजकल बहुत सक्रिय है, ये सही बोला सब लोगों ने, तुहिन सिन्हा भी मानते हैं इसको।
ईडी को इस मामले में आने का रास्ता तो अनूप सिंह ने ही खोल दिया है। मैं कहता हूं कि अनूप सिंह जी ने एफआईआर करके सेल्फ गोल किया है, और इनके एफआईआर के बदौलत कभी भी ईडी आ सकती है। देखिए, झारखंड में जो स्थितियां बन रही हैं, 3 विधायकों को ही मत ब्लेम करिए। और ये 3 विधायकों ने जो किया वो भुगत रहे हैं। सही कहा भाजपा के प्रवक्ता ने कि इरफान साहब तो पानी पी पी के भाजपा को कोसते रहते थे विधानसभा के भीतर भी। इनके एक कोंगाड़ी हैं, वो क्रिश्चियन हैं, भाजपा के सिंपैथी नहीं रखने वाले हैं। तीसरे राजेश कच्छप भी खुल के भाजपा के खिलाफ रोज बोलते थे कि आदिवासी हैं, आदिवासी वोट नहीं देने इनको। ये तीनों के तीनों किसके करीब थे? भाजपा के करीब तो नहीं थे। भाजपा के साथ इनके आने का कोई संयोग बनना बड़ी मुश्किल लगता है। और ये राज्य ऐसा हो गया है कि इस राज्य में हमारे माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी हैं, उनके विधायक प्रतिनिधि ईडी के कारण से जेल में है। ईडी ने जेल में रख दिया, विधायक प्रतिनिधि हैं, और इनके प्रेस एडवाइजर हैं, उनको ईडी ने समन किया हुआ है। तो मैं तो 2-3 दिन से कह रहा हूँ विधानसभा में भी कि भाई मुख्यमंत्री जी को इस पर अपनी जुबान तो खोलनी चाहिए। क्यों मौन साधे हैं?
All right, Saryu Rai ji, thank you so much. Tuhin Sinha, Dr. Mahua Maji and Swati Malik. The irony is that in its short term of existence, Jharkhand has never had a stable government. There is a lot of instability that the small state has witnessed. We're slipping into a short break. Coming up, The chief of Al-Qaeda, Al-Zawahiri, is killed in a U.S. military operation in Kabul. A CNN special report coming up next. Stay with us.